We all know that one person who loves to crack jokes, especially when the punchline is you. They pick at your quirks, your mistakes, your little imperfections, all with a smile saying, "I'm just messing with you." At first it seems harmless, but let's be honest, these jokes are often more than just playful banter. They're calculated digs, cleverly disguised as humor, meant to chip away at your self-esteem bit by bit. Welcome to my channel. Philosophy of Stoicism. I remember being close to someone who always had something to say about me, how I dressed, the way I spoke, even the projects I was working on. At first, I laughed along, thinking it was all in good fun, but over time I noticed a pattern. Their jokes always targeted my weaknesses, never my strengths. It wasn't long before I started second-guessing myself, wondering if maybe I was the problem, if maybe my flaws were as glaring as they made them out to be. Here's the truth. People who consistently joke about your flaws aren't doing it out of affection. They're testing the waters to see how much disrespect you'll tolerate. It's a subtle form of manipulation, a way to assert dominance while keeping you in your place. And the worst part? They get away with it because we've been conditioned to believe that if we can't take a joke, we're the ones with the problem. But let's flip that script. Standing up for yourself when a joke crosses the line isn't being overly sensitive. It's essential. You deserve to be around people who lift you up, not those who knock you down just for a cheap laugh. True friends don't need to highlight your flaws to feel better about themselves. They celebrate your strengths and help you work through your weaknesses without making you the butt of the joke. I've seen too many people let these kinds of jokes slide, thinking it's easier to keep the peace. But here's the deep truth. Allowing others to disrespect you, even in jest, is a slippery slope. It starts with small comments, but over time, those jokes wear you down, making you question your worth. And the more you allow it, the more they'll push until you're left doubting yourself. All because you didn't want to seem too sensitive. I had to learn this the hard way. By laughing along, I was giving them permission to keep going. It wasn't until I started setting boundaries that I noticed a shift, not just in how they treated me, but in how I saw myself. I stopped letting their words define me and started owning my narrative. So here's my advice. The next time someone makes a joke at your expense, don't just laugh it off. Ask yourself, is this really funny, or is there something more going on here? And if the answer is the latter, don't be afraid to call them out. It might be uncomfortable. It might even end a friendship. But your self-respect is worth more than someone's misguided sense of humor. Life's too short to surround yourself with people who can't see your value. If their idea of friendship is constantly pointing out your flaws, it's time to find new friends, the ones who don't need to put you down to feel good about themselves. Stand tall, speak up, and don't let anyone reduce you to a punchline. They give compliments that sting like insults. We've all been there. Someone gives you a compliment, but instead of feeling good, you're left with a bitter aftertaste, like you've just been slapped with a velvet glove. It's the kind of compliment that makes you pause and think, wait, was that a compliment or an insult? And the truth is, it's often both. These backhanded compliments are a sneaky way for people to undermine you while pretending to be kind. I remember sharing a project I was incredibly proud of, only to have a colleague say, "Wow, this is actually pretty good for someone like you." At first I was stunned. On the surface it sounded positive, but those last 4 words, "for someone like you," hit like a ton of bricks. What did that even mean? Was I not supposed to be capable of doing great work? That's the thing about these so-called compliments. They aren't meant to uplift you. They're designed to keep you in your place. It's a power play, a way for the person giving it to assert superiority while making you doubt your own abilities. They're saying, "I see you trying, but you'll never be as good as me." People who give backhanded compliments are often insecure themselves. They see your potential, and it scares them. So they use these subtle digs to keep you second-guessing, ensuring you don't rise too high. It's like they're patting you on the back while pushing you down with the other hand. And here's where it gets real. We've all done it at some point. Maybe not intentionally, but we've let our insecurities slip out in the form of a compliment meant to remind someone else of their place. But that doesn't mean we have to accept it when it's thrown our way. You have the power to reject it. When someone says, "You're smarter than you look," or "This is good, considering you're new at this," you don't have to swallow it whole. Call it out. Ask, "Thanks, but what do you mean by that?" It forces them to confront the insult hidden in their words, and more often than not, it puts them on the spot. Suddenly they realize you're not playing their game, and their tune changes. The takeaway? Don't let veiled negativity define you. Whether it's a jealous colleague, a toxic friend, or even a family member, remember this: your worth isn't up for debate. Compliments should lift you up, not tear you down. If someone's words leave you questioning yourself, it's time to question their intentions instead. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your successes without strings attached. They subtly exclude you from plans. It's the little things that sting the most, like realizing your so-called friends accidentally forgot to invite you to dinner, a party, or a weekend getaway. They swear it was an oversight, that it was last minute, or worse, they assume you were too busy anyway. But let's be real, these aren't accidents. This is social exclusion in its sneakiest form, and it's a clear sign that you're not as valued as you thought. I remember checking my phone one weekend and seeing pictures of a group of friends having a great time at an event I would have loved to attend. The kicker? Not a single person had mentioned it to me beforehand. When I casually brought it up later, the excuses rolled in. "Oh, we thought you were busy," or "It was so last minute." But deep down, I knew the truth. If they had wanted me there, they would have made sure I knew about it. Here's the harsh reality. This kind of exclusion isn't just thoughtlessness. It's deliberate. It's a way of sending a message without saying a word. They don't want you there, but they don't have the guts to tell you outright. Instead, they hope you'll fade out of the group quietly, without causing a scene. I used to let it slide, hoping that next time I'd be included. But then I realized that by staying silent, I was allowing myself to be treated as an afterthought. So I started calling them out. "Hey, I saw you guys went out last weekend. Why didn't anyone invite me?" It wasn't easy. It made things awkward, but it also forced them to confront their behavior. The bottom line? If people want you in their lives, they'll make the effort to include you, no matter how last minute the plan is. And if they don't, it's time to rethink the value of those relationships. You deserve to be around people who want you there. Period. You're constantly chasing after their approval or attention. True friends don't forget to invite you. They make sure you're there because they genuinely enjoy your company. So if you find yourself being subtly excluded from plans, don't just brush it off. Confront it. Ask the hard questions and be prepared for the answers, even if they're not what you want to hear. Because at the end of the day, it's better to know where you truly stand than to be left wondering why you were left out again. And remember, you're not a backup option. You're a priority. Surround yourself with people who treat you like one. They're only busy when it comes to you. We've all heard it before. "I'm so busy these days, sorry, I can't hang out." It's the perfect excuse. After all, who isn't busy? But what happens when you start noticing a pattern? They're always available for others, posting pictures of their outings, catching up with mutual friends, but when it comes to you, suddenly they're swamped. Here's the cold, hard truth. They're not too busy. They're just too busy for you. I've been in that frustrating situation more times than I care to admit. I remember reaching out to a friend I used to be close with, trying to set up a time to catch up. Every time I suggested something, they had an excuse. I'm working late. I've got a lot on my plate. Maybe next week. Meanwhile, I'd see them hanging out with others, having a great time. Somehow, they always found time for everyone, except me. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to see the pattern. The message they were sending was loud and clear. I wasn't a priority in their life anymore. We've been conditioned to accept busy as a valid reason to be pushed aside. But let's be honest, people make time for what and who they care about. If they're constantly busy when it comes to you, it's not about their schedule, it's about their priorities. And that's a hard pill to swallow because it forces you to confront the reality that you might not be as important to them as they are to you. The truth is, busy is often a polite way of saying, I don't want to spend time with you. It's easier for them to blame their schedule than to admit that they're choosing not to include you in their life. They want to keep you on the hook just in case, without actually investing in the relationship. I've been on both sides of this. There were times when I was the one making excuses because I didn't know how to tell someone that I had outgrown the friendship. But being on the receiving end taught me a valuable lesson. It's better to be honest, even if it's uncomfortable, than to string someone along with excuses. When I finally called out my friend on always being busy, the conversation was awkward, but necessary. It gave me the clarity I needed to move on and invest my time and energy in relationships where I was valued. They avoid physical contact. Like the plague. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, physical contact, or rather the lack of it. This isn't just about romantic relationships. Physical contact is a fundamental part of human interaction. It's a way of connecting and building trust. So what does it mean when someone goes out of their way to avoid even the most casual touch? The answer isn't pretty. They're sending a clear signal that they're uncomfortable around you, and it's time to pay attention. I once had a colleague who seemed to recoil every time I reached out for a handshake or a friendly pat on the back. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but then I noticed it wasn't just me. They were warm and tactile with everyone else. When it came to me, though, it was like I had the plague. It wasn't long before I realized that their avoidance of physical contact wasn't just a quirk. It was a deliberate effort to keep me at a distance. Sure, some people just aren't touchy-feely, and that's okay. But when it's selective, when they're fine hugging others but stiffen up around you, it's a red flag. Their body language is doing all the talking. I've learned to pay attention to these cues, even when it's hard to admit what they mean. There was a time when I ignored the signs, convincing myself that someone's reluctance to get close was just a personality trait. But the more I reflected on it, the more I realized it was about our relationship. When I finally confronted the situation, it led to some tough conversations, and in some cases, the end of the relationship. But it also freed me from the frustration of wondering why things felt off. They disappear when you need support. Nothing reveals the true nature of a relationship like a crisis. When the going gets tough, you find out who your real friends are. So what does it say about someone when they vanish the moment you need them most? It's not just a sign of flakiness. It's a neon warning that they're not as invested in you as you thought. I learned this the hard way during a particularly rough patch in my life. I was dealing with a major personal issue, something that really shook me to my core. Naturally, I turned to the people I considered close friends, expecting some level of support, even if it was just a text or a quick call. But guess what? Crickets. The people I thought would be there for me suddenly had every excuse in the book. I'm so swamped at work. Sorry, I'm just really busy right now. I'll check in with you later. Spoiler alert, they never did. People love to talk about how they'll always be there for you. But when push comes to shove, many of them are only around for the good times. They'll party with you, laugh with you, and enjoy the high points of your life. But the minute things get real, they're nowhere to be found. It's easier for them to ghost you than to deal with your pain. They don't want to be dragged into your problems because, deep down, they don't care enough to be there when it counts. True support isn't about convenience. It's about being there when it's hard, when it's uncomfortable, when it's the last thing you want to do. The people who disappear when you need them most aren't just failing you. They're showing you exactly where you stand in their life. But don't let their absence make you bitter. Let it make you better. Use it as a filter to sift out the people who don't deserve a place in your life. The ones who stick around, who check in, who show up even when it's inconvenient. Those are the people who truly matter. Those are the relationships you should nurture and cherish. In the end, life is too short to invest in fair-weather friends. Surround yourself with people who will stand by you in the storm, not just bask in the sunshine. Because when you find those rare individuals who stick around when the chips are down, you've found something worth holding on to. And as for those who disappear, let them go. They've already shown you their true colors. They gossip about you behind your back. Gossip, it's the social poison that spreads faster than wildfire, capable of burning down relationships in an instant. The truth is, gossip is never as harmless as people make it seem. When someone you consider a friend talks behind your back, they're not just sharing a casual story. They're actively undermining your trust, your reputation, and your relationship. Let's be real. When someone gossips about you, it's a clear sign of disrespect. No matter how friendly they act to your face, their words behind your back tell the real story. I know this firsthand. I've been the subject of gossip before, and let me tell you, it's one of the most gut-wrenching experiences. There was a time when I confided in someone I thought was a close friend, shared something deeply personal, trusting them to keep it between us. But within days, details of that conversation started circulating, twisted, exaggerated, and completely out of my control. It was like a cruel game of telephone, except the message wasn't just getting lost. It was being weaponized against me. The person I trusted had turned my vulnerability into entertainment. Here's the uncomfortable truth. People who gossip about you aren't just venting. They're playing a power game. Gossip is their way of elevating themselves while tearing you down, all without having to confront you directly. It's manipulative, cowardly, and toxic. And make no mistake, people who gossip about others to you will gossip about you to others. It's not a one-time thing. It's a pattern. I've seen it happen too many times. Someone who loves spilling everyone else's secrets suddenly goes quiet when they're around you. Guess what? That means they're probably spilling your secrets when you're not around. It's a betrayal of the worst kind because it's done in the shadows without giving you a chance to defend yourself or even know what's being said. And here's where it gets personal. I confronted the so-called friend who betrayed my trust. I expected an apology, or at least an explanation. Instead, they brushed it off, acted like it was no big deal. But here's the reality. Gossip is never harmless. It's a betrayal, plain and simple. And it speaks volumes about the person spreading it, not the person it's about. So if you ever find yourself the subject of gossip, remember this. It's not a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of who they are. And you deserve better. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to Philosophy of Stoicism for more real relatable advice on navigating the complexities of love and relationships. Remember, relationships take time, care, and effort, but the rewards are worth it. When fear and caution are met with understanding and patience, they transform into trust and connection. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.